Hey guys, it's Jessica from Zella Maybe, and I'm doing my very first video because Carla from Tiny Angry Crafter tagged me in the vintage tag. So coming from another Agent Carter superfan, that's pretty exciting. Thank you. Yeah, so basically what this is 20 questions for the vintage loving broads, or, well, I mean, I guess vintage loving dudes could do this too. But probably mostly broads. Just talking about their style and how they live the vintage life, I guess you could say. So yeah, let's get started. Alright, so number one, who are your style icons? I don't know that I necessarily have what I would call icons. There isn't anybody out there whose style I really directly emulate. There are definitely people that inspire me. You know, I really love like Audrey Hepburn or Catherine Deneuve. Like, they're a couple of people who, if I'm feeling a little uninspired or not quite sure what direction I want to go in, I can just look up photos of them and there's always something there to inspire me. Alright, question number two, what is your favorite way to get inspired? Yeah, so like I said, just looking at pictures of ladies like that or other really stylish vintage women, famous or otherwise. And just more generally, the internet, other bloggers, Instagrammers, looking at what Marilyn Manson's ex-wives and girlfriends are up to. I mean, say what you will about the guy, but he dated Dita Von Teese and Rose McGowan, Rachel Evan Wood, and they're all pretty styling ladies. Yeah.
And they're all pretty styling ladies.
You know, there's a lot to like there. And just more generally looking at what's going on in mainstream fashion as well. Just because there's a lot of really awesome stuff out there, and you know, because fashion is so cyclical, there's always something coming back around that's vintage inspired that can be interesting and also you know, a little bit cheaper to buy than going out and buying a vintage version, so that's pretty cool. Number three, what is your most used slash favorite hair tool? The one that I use the most right now is a very small barrel curling iron. It's only about like maybe this big. And it just works really well for creating sort of like those vintage spirals and waves and stuff like that. Like I use it most days when I have the time. Yeah, it's just a little bit more consistent for me than doing rollers, and I'm really just, I can't do pin curls, it's too much work. But I have nothing but admiration for those ladies that can, so very good. Number five is vintage, something that you do every day for weekends or special occasions. It's pretty much every day these days. May not actually be vintage, but it's definitely vintage inspired. I actually can't really remember the last time that I went out and wasn't wearing something that was kind of vintagey. Yeah, like today I've got on vintage blouse. I think this is probably from the 50s or the 60s, and a modern skirt. So, you know, usually there's a little bit of a balance there. Number six, what is your favorite blush and lipstick? Favorite blush, there's one that I really like. It's from a brand called The Face Shop. They're a Korean company, and it's kind of like a very light sort of lilac-y pink almost, and it just does a really good job kind of brightening up my cheekbones. As far as lipstick goes, I've actually been wearing a lot of lipsticks this month, and I've got my first giveaway coming up, so very exciting. 5 MAC lipsticks, so keep an eye out for that. But yeah, the lipsticks that I've been reaching for most often these days, one of them is it's called Passion Red, I think, and it's from Sephora. It's just a really nice matte true blue red. And then the other one is Go Fig, which is a Clinique color. It's a nice warm nude brown. It's really nice for days when I want to wear something on my lips but don't want something that's like pow, red lipstick. Oops, I just realized I skipped over another hair one. Updo, down, or half and half. For me, at least, it depends on how long my hair is at the time, because I go through a lot of different shops and styles and stuff like that. You know, right now, because it's so short, I'm usually wearing it down, like to wear it curled. But updos are great. Like they're really elegant and they're really easy if you have like shoulder length or longer hair. I also really like half and half as well. You know, like a bouffant style with a little flippy ends. It's really cute when you've got it half up. So they all have a place in the arsenal, I think. All right, number 7, dress, skirt, or pants, and heels or flats. In my everyday life, I more often wear a skirt and a blouse with flats, just because it's, you know, it's easy to walk in. I'm really digging like menswear inspired shoes right now, so brogues and loafers and things like that. They're really comfortable, and they also add kind of like a nice edge to like the really almost like over the top feminine style that I tend to go for. You know, if I'm dressing up, if it's a fancy occasion, or I'm like just really trying to look nice for pictures or something, you know, I'll throw a pair of heels in there too. Usually nice dress. Looks fabulous. How can you resist, right? Number 8, off the rack or homemade. So, you know, I don't really sew. I'm kind of learning, but I'm not good enough to really make my own garments yet. So if homemade means me made, off the rack, definitely. You know, if I had a gnome locked away in my attic or something like that, I would probably prefer the homemade stuff. Mm. I have the backwards or the forwards facing camera. I've been drinking some wine, so yeah, forgive my slightly purple teeth. Number 9, do you swing dance? You know, this is actually kind of a funny one for my boyfriend because we've actually taken like a few lessons here and there, but you know, I'm not a bad dancer. I'm actually pretty good when I'm by myself, but I have some really serious left-right confusion. So not only am I not the person that you want to ask for directions, I'm not very good at dancing with a partner just because like I'll be like, oh, okay, so we're going left now, and to me left is actually right. So, you know, it's sort of problematic. I don't know. I would like to be better at it someday though. Number 10, extreme vintage or subtle touches. You know, if we're saying extreme vintage means like period appropriate, where you do the whole thing like head to toe, I would have to say more subtle touches. Just because like I have a pretty eclectic style. Usually I'm wearing like modern shoes. If I'm wearing like a real vintagey dress with vintage hair and vintage makeup, I'll have to sort of like throw it off a little bit with like a leather jacket or something to make it look a little bit more modern. That's just more my style. So yeah, I would say more. Well, I mean, I'm not really particularly subtle, but I don't think I'm all that extreme either, so it's sort of hard to say. 11, favorite perfume. I actually can't wear perfume most of the time. I'm allergic to a lot of stuff, so it makes me sneeze. One that I do wear on a pretty regular basis, it's called Premier Fit. I don't know, it smells like figs. It smells really good. One that I would really like to have though is it's an Hermes perfume, and I would bathe in it if I was like rich and could afford it. Because it's like $100 a bottle. It's really expensive, but it's called Un Jardin Soudanais, which I feel so fancy and so French just saying that. But it's a really nice, like light, citrusy, kind of sharp fragrance. It's fantastic. I love it. All right, number 12, favorite skincare product. This is one I've actually talked about at some length on the blog. The thing that's really been saving my skin this winter has been hyaluronic acid. I actually found this really fantastic serum at Ulta. It's by a brand called Reviva, and it just does a really fantastic job of moisturizing without being too heavy or too greasy. So I put it on before I put on any other moisturizer in the morning, and I think it really has helped amp up the moisturization, I guess you could say. So number 13, what do the people in your life think of your vintage style? So my boyfriend is actually a total retrophile, so that's really awesome for me. Yeah, he's actually really supportive of all of my style goals and my slight shopping addiction. Yeah, as long as I buy him stuff too, he likes that. Yeah, I think most of the people that know me really think that I'm pretty stylish and they like that I'm always a little bit dressed up, at least, more so than a lot of people do these days. So, yeah, it's kind of nice being like the stylish one that my friends want to borrow clothes from because, a few years ago, I don't think anybody would have thought that way about me or about my wardrobe. So, it's pretty cool. Number 14, my favorite accessory. Um, Sort of hard to pick one, but I think probably my favorite one at the moment is this green hat that I have. And it's very broad brimmed. It's got this beautiful gold, like cord braiding around the hat band. Man, I feel like Zorro's like badass sister or something when I wear it. It's fantastic. So I don't wear it as often as I would like to, just because I have a hard time convincing myself that I'm cool enough to wear it, but I really like it. It's an awesome hat. Number 15, do you find the vintage community welcoming or snobby? For the most part, I've found it very welcoming. A lot of people have been really nice and really friendly and happy to share all of the knowledge that they've spent years accumulating. People are people and vintage people are people. So, not everybody's been as nice, but for the most part, I have no complaints. Hi, nice people. And number 16, what drew you to vintage style? So I've actually been into, like, I'm a huge history buff, and when I was a kid I was very into Victoriana and of Green Gables and, watching, what was it, North and South. It was like this movie about the Civil War and Patrick Swayze was in it. So yeah, I've always been kind of into like the idea of vintage style, and probably 7 or 8 years ago I started getting into Lolita style. So, very full skirts and a very like sort of youthful like Victorian doll meets 1950s silhouette. I actually still think that's pretty cool, but at a certain point I stopped wanting to look quite so much like a cupcake. And yeah, so I started leaning more towards vintage, and a lot of it's just been kind of straight on from there, right into the arms of my beloved vintage dresses. 17, my favorite place to shop vintage. I love going to vintage stores. That's not something that I get to do quite as often as I like because, it's great to just be able to sort of wander and actually like touch the things, not to mention trying them on. That's awesome. But in terms of like the actual amount of time spent, definitely Etsy. Etsy, the time suck. Etsy, the fiend that just drains my wallet. I love you. Don't ever leave me. Number 18, what vintage eras are your favorites? In terms of what I actually have in my wardrobe, I would say like the new look era, so like late 40s to early 60s is probably what I have the most of. It's very easy in terms of like just finding things that flatter my figure and fit me well. I'm very hourglass, so a lot of like things that are more like straight up and down. It's hard to find things that fit my butt, like, to be totally honest. Yeah, although I mean I actually really have gotten into things from earlier decades in the 20th century, so like teens, 20s, and 30s. Yeah, like one of my most recent posts was about this gorgeous 30s dress that unfortunately it's just way too fragile to wear. So I don't think I'm gonna buy anything that's quite that old in the future. But I'm still interested in picking up pieces that sort of are reminiscent of those eras. So yeah, I'm taking kind of a broad view these days. Number 19, who are the most glamorous film stars? There's a lot of glamour girls out there, obviously. I think Gloria Swanson probably takes the cake as far as just like over the top, extravagant glamour. I read this fantastic piece about her on The Hairpin, which I recommend really highly. It's if you just search for Scandals of Classic Hollywood. there's this whole series of just really fascinating articles about all of the stars from the up until like the 50s and 60s, I think even some into the 70s. But yeah, Gloria Swanson featured really prominently in one of them, and apparently she just had this massive wardrobe that she spent like hundreds of thousands of dollars on. And then later in life, she actually developed her own clothing line, which I think is really cool for the curvy girls out there. So you know, she was ahead of her time in terms of that. You know, just thinking people of all sizes deserve to have glamour and beauty in their lives. In terms of just like everyday glamour, I think probably Audrey Hepburn, again, is my idol for that, just because she had this gift for making everything look very effortless and elegant and beautiful, and I think that that's kind of the essence of glamour as most people practice it. Finally, number 20, what is the favorite vintage item that you own? So I actually own this one dress that I thought I lost, and it's navy blue. It's about mid-calf length. The button's right up the front, with a little Peter Pan collar and a tie at the neck, and it's really easy to wear and really flattering and kind of appropriate for any occasion. And when I thought I lost it, I did end up finding it again, obviously. Turned up at the bottom of one of my boyfriend's boxes of clothing, which he never unpacked when we moved. When I thought I lost it, I spent months buying navy blue dresses, trying to replace it, and nothing was as good. So I think just having gone through that, where I loved something and then it was gone, and I was so sad about that, I think that's probably my favorite vintage object. So yeah, that's it. Okay, so since this is a game of tag, I'm going to tag 3 people that I would like to see answer these questions, and those 3 are Laura from Paper Mothball Vintage, Cherry from She Knits and Pearls, and the lovely German woman whose name I don't actually know, sorry honey, from Just Another Wardrobe Experience. So let's see how many of you actually do this. Maybe none, maybe all of you. Ooh, who knows? Very exciting. Yeah, but that's it. That's my first video. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. And who knows? Maybe there'll be more to come in the future.